The Earnestly Speaking podcast is a show that is founded on free-flowing conversation and may at times venture into mature subjects. Listener discretion is advised.
Yeah, Earnestly Speaking podcast. Let's get it. I'm a giant in New York, in Miami carry heat. So much more in store, my product can flood the street. Opinion Nation Godfather, CEO. Puff in the late 90s, gon' see me blow. Oh. Got my hustle on, no imitation of bad. Army of untouchables, Opinion Nation staff. Never an off season, homie, check the numbers. Heart throb in my own right, supplying southern comfort. Earnestly speaking, my ego is well fed. Earnestly speaking, you're too feeble and no threat. See, I'm like a hurricane, you're a mild breeze. Earnestly speaking, leaving Eli a dynasty. Shake!
First Week Podcast coming to you Sunday, February 16th, 2025. Yeah, we're doing Sunday shows now, apparently. And I did it because this guy needs to come and brag on the show. He needs an introduction, of course. He is my fellow cohort on the panel on the Hulla Podcast every Tuesday during the football season. It is my man, Matthew Muehleisen. He looks very happy for once. He never smiles for the record, guys. He's smiling right now.
Very rarely.
Ornery. What's up, buddy?
I have the
Congratulations, my friend.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It still doesn't feel real. So like it's still that week long. And I mean, we'll talk about the game, but I think, going in, you and I discussed there was an era of confidence around the Eagles this time through, as opposed to in Super Bowl 57. But even feeling confident going in did not prepare me for the game that we saw like that. Yeah. That was like the level of confidence that some of the Eagles fans seem to have on Twitter is what actually happened.
Philly fans in general. Yeah.
Like everyone's like, oh, blowout. We're going to drop 50 on them. It's like, all right, let's settle down. And they probably could have if they needed to, but, kind of dialed it back towards the end there. But yeah, big win. So I'm happy that sets me up for the rest of 2025. I'll be in good spirits.
Well, I mean, honestly, I am not surprised. I mean, I'm probably a little surprised how bad it was, but I called the runaway pretty much for the last 2 weeks because you look at both these teams throughout the year. Philly lost what, 3 games all year long, if that, 3 games, and I think
3 total, and 2 of them were on drops that would have sealed the game.
And none were blowouts. None were actually convincing losses. All those games with 1-possession losses.
Tampa Bay was garbage time. Okay, they were down like Lane Johnson, AJ
and
Brown.
The receivers too.
I want to say Devontae was out that game.
He was out too that game as well. And I know Tampa is kind of a weird little like situation. Every team has that one team like
they always have Philly's number. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I was not shocked at the runaway. I remember the first week saying, right now I have a runaway for Eagles. I might change mine next week. And I felt coming closer to the game, like I'm looking at the rosters, I'm looking at the injury report, I'm looking at all the things I'm seeing both these teams. I just don't see it because if you compare these two teams they played 2 years ago, the Chiefs might be maybe slightly better. The Eagles are significantly better than they were 2 years ago. Significantly better. When Jalen, and it's not even a insult to the guy, but when Jalen Hurts is your weakest link,
right?
And the guy's easily top 10 quarterback in the league. You're in a good spot. So that was my film going to the games. I didn't think I had 37-27 Eagles. I know you want me to jinx them, and yes, I was trying to jinx them. Yes, record. So I didn't want them to win for obvious reasons. But
that's fair,
but at the same time, I can separate the two. I can separate my what I want versus what I think. And what I thought was they put up is the best team in football. And ever since that 2-2 start, and I remember we had a discussion. You and I think he came on the pod. I think he may have came on the pod as well.
Might have, yeah.
In addition to the Hulla Podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And we were discussing after that bye week, okay, let's assess the situation now. The 2-2 are now. All right, Sirianni's on a bit of a hot seat, I guess, when you want to call that. I said from back then it wasn't deserved, but we know Philadelphia media is. They want to, everything's bigger than it's supposed to be.
Yep.
And then when we said, okay, if this team could just settle down, get back to the basics, you have Saquon Barkley, you have one of the best teams in football, which they did, things will be fine. And things played the way it should have, so.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think you and I talked even before the season, and we said, "What's the floor? What do they have to do for this to be a successful season?" And I think we were on that cusp of at least an NFC Championship game performance at the bare minimum.
Yes. Yeah.
But Super Bowl had to be the expectation with the additions that they made. So to live up to that, I think was kind of telling of how good this team was. And I know there was some drama and some chaos throughout the season, as there are with any team at the top. Is gonna, you're gonna start to pull the magnifying glass out and see what's going on, where are the weaknesses. But I think they overcame that. And before we dig into the game, you've always been a Jalen Hurts guy, and he's still being scrutinized, by the how good is he really, how much of it was a team thing. I have him top 5, and when I say top 5, he's number 5 to me. Where would he be in? Because I think there's still 4 quarterbacks that are clearly ahead of him.
I think we agree to 4, right? Lamar, Pat, Joe, and Josh.
And Josh. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. At this point, I put him ahead of Herbert. Herbert's been too inconsistent in the playoffs for me. I think Stroud and Daniels, probably have an argument soon. Stroud had a little bit of a sophomore slump this year, but every single receiver on his team got hurt too. So you can't really say how good was CJ Stroud, but I think there's a couple quarterbacks that probably will pass Jalen as they get a little bit more under their belt here. But where would you have him at this point?
So coming to the year, I think I had him at 7. It's tough because when I do my top 10, to me, it's more so the fact, okay, if I put X player on X team, does this team elevate immediately because of that player?
Right.
Jalen, I think, does, but I don't know if he does it as much as obviously those other 4 guys. Mm-hmm. I remember saying at the end of the year that Matthew Stafford had a case number 5. Mm-hmm. And then Jaden Daniels had that run, especially the playoffs, that changed the discussion. Now, the only apprehension to Jaden Daniels is that it's a 1-year sample. And you just mentioned CJ Stroud. Yeah. Sophomore slump sort of thing. So you don't want to get ahead of yourself. But at the same time, when Pat Mahomes had that first year, the first year as a starter, he was number 1 immediately. I mean, number 1 because we just saw enough. We saw enough. The team was just that amazing. So that's why Jaden Daniels is a little complicated for me. Yeah. So Jalen's probably still in that. I'm going to go 5.
The 5 to 7 range.
He's definitely top 10. That's calm that noise real quick because all the turnover stuff he was doing last year and maybe early in the year, he settled down on that. Mm-hmm. So he's definitely still in that 5 to 7 range for me. Because I think for me also too, the intangibles that make him still in that conversation is leadership. Mm-hmm. Is that he has the same demeanor whether he loses a game, wins a championship, or whatever. Same thing. He wins the Super Bowl, he has the same demeanor. Yeah. And to me, this is the things I saw way back in Alabama. I was saying, I hope this kid gets drafted by some team and, have a chance to succeed somewhere. And, I'm really happy for him as a person to win this because I've been a guy for Jonas guy since 2017. I've been saying, also to a lot of my friends, it sucks because the Eagles, like, the only reason I hate the Eagles because they're the rival to my favorite football team, the biggest rival. Yeah. If I was not a Giants fan, I might root for the Eagles because that franchise, for the record, the way they are, not just as a football team, but as a franchise in general, and has been for a long time, politically, in terms of how progressive they are, in terms of black quarterbacks, and have been for 30 plus years, during my wheelhouse. Yeah. So right there, I admire what the Eagles do and what they believe in and how they structure their team for the word go. Yeah. And they've always been, and the thing is, it's not a new thing. They've always been this way. Randall Cunningham, Michael Vick, Donovan McNabb, and now Jalen Hurts. And they, I'm not to make it a race thing here, but when I see teams doing that on a consistent basis, to me, it's authentic to who they are as a franchise. Mm-hmm. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that at this point, people just need to realize this is who Jalen Hurts is. I think a lot of the criticism is that, he can't, sling it and throw for 300, 400 yards and win you the game that way. But if he doesn't have to, why recreate
exactly
the wheel here?
What are we doing?
And I mean, we have seen him make the throws that he needs to at times. I think in the Super Bowl he had 2 bad throws, and then the rest of the game he looked very sharp. Same with the championship game against the Commanders. He threw it when he needed to. I think the mindset for the Chiefs was we're going to shut down Barkley and make Jalen beat us, and that's what he did. I mean, the defense obviously played a large role in that too, but we've also seen what happens when the defense plays a big part. Like, look at the loss to the Commanders. Defense forced 5 turnovers, but Kenny Pickett couldn't get a first down after, the first 2 drives, and
There you go.
they ultimately lost. So,
yeah, you find the value in that kid in the little things like that you just mentioned.
To
me, I know obviously the Saquon thing, and we got to in a second, Jalen Hurts and all that. I come away from the Super Bowl looking as a football fan, and to me, this is the ultimate redemption of Nick Sirianni.
Mm-hmm.
It really is, because look, I get people's dislike for the guy, his demeanor, and I get that. I'm not saying I agree with that, but I get it. This guy, from the word go, from his first press conference, was criticized because he was stuttering over the place and all that. Who's this guy?
Yeah,
this guy's that was the second winningest coach in the league in the last 5 years, behind Andy Reid, who we consider probably the greatest of all time,
Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Yep. So, to me, this title, more than anything, with all that's happened the last 3 years, between going to the Super Bowl 2 years ago and then last year's debacle, and then of course the bounce back this year, is a redemption for Nick Sirianni, and he deserves it. He deserves it.
Yeah. I told my wife at the end of the game that I wanted this one not for me. I've seen the Eagles win a Super Bowl in 52. So I'm not greedy. Once my team wins it all, I don't need to see championship after championship. It gets stale, it gets boring. So I've seen the one, anything on top of this is just, a cherry on top, but I really wanted it this year for what you said, Sirianni. I felt like he deserved that. Hurts absolutely deserved it. I wanted to see Saquon get the ring, for the offseason stuff going through that. I felt like just this team this year, they went through so much. There was constant, how good are the Eagles really after every win? They were on a 10-game heater, and the media is still well, can you really trust Philadelphia? It's I really want them to get this ring just for them, and to shut up the talking heads. It was great to see Nick Wright humbled. It was great to chuckle at Colin Cowherd, who said, I don't think the Eagles will get into the red zone all game, and then turn around and the Chiefs didn't cross midfield until there were 3 minutes left in the third. To see all the narratives against Philly be turned around was what was more satisfactory than the actual win, and to see the players get what they worked so hard for.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, you mentioned Saquon Barkley. I mean, great kid, obviously. I mean, he's the reason why I was so adamant about the Giants, I understood what the Giants did what they did. Mm-hmm. Although the mistake was made the year before that by committing to the wrong guy. And once you did that, you fucked the money up, and that's it. Yeah. But I kept saying, before they released, before he went to Philadelphia, that if you don't sign this guy, he's going to Philadelphia, because this is what the Eagles do. This is why Harry Roseman is the best executive in football, and has been for 8 to 10 years, because they stay on the gas. Even after winning the Super Bowl in 2017, they stay on the gas no matter what. Look, the people got fired 2 years after winning the Super Bowl.
Right.
I mean, and probably shouldn't have got fired, but he did, because of they saw regression. Yeah, I get that. And I knew that if they did not sign Saquon Barkley to that deal, just give them fucking money and call it a day. It's more so keep him away from Philadelphia, and of course, because it obviously has roots there. Number one, you know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, it's hard not to root for the kid itself. Taking all the advice of the team aside, he's a great kid. This is why I want him in the locker room, because he was a good representative of the franchise, and the Giants, they fumbled that bag, dude. And the worst part for me is that it's not that they don't have Daniel Jones. It's not like they signed Daniel Jones. I mean, obviously, that was the wrong move anyway. Yeah. The problem I had with that is now, in hindsight, he's not even on your freaking roster anymore. That's the worst part. So to me, it's okay, what are you doing? You know, and that's why for me it's kind of bothersome watching all this play out, because look, the Giants have won 4 Super Bowls. We have great years with this, and I'm always grateful for what we've done in the past. But my God, you guys right now are a stupid team. I love you guys, but you guys are a stupid team. I'm called like I see it. You're dumb. Yeah. Get better. Yeah. So kudos to Saquon Barkley, not only going to Philadelphia and then having a 2,000-yard season and all that. I mean,
you said it, man. How he put together a roster that I don't know that we see a team as good as this Eagles team in Philadelphia for some time. Obviously, they're going to lose some of the players in free agency here. What they get to replace them, who knows? They do a good job at this point, scouting, developing talent. I think offensive line with Stoutland there, he's seemed to get the most out of everyone who's been on his offensive line since he's been a coach there. So that part necessarily I'm not as concerned about as what we're going to lose defensively and how we fill those gaps there, because you're losing 2 at least on the defensive line probably.
Yeah.
And then making decisions of what you want to do there. But he's always kind of had that ability to bounce back quickly. After the Chip Kelly years, they turned things around and got to the Super Bowl in 2 years behind Wentz and then Foles. And then the wheels fell off again, retooled again, gets back to the Super Bowl with Hurts, doesn't win it initially, but he didn't blow everything up. It was like a 2-year thing of what do we need to do to make this team better. And I think last year we saw them figuring out what needs to go where, and then this year was, we've got it, we know what we need, let's go get it. And it was Saquon, it was Zach Bond, it was Becton on the offensive line, moving him from tackle to guard and giving the Eagles a wall of an offensive line there. All of that is what led to it. So I'm anxious and curious to see what he's going to do this offseason, who he keeps, what he does with the contracts, what this team looks like this year, because I think it will be a little different, and we'll see what that turns into.
And yeah, you say that, and I agree with what you're saying for the record. You look at the lay of the land now. Let's look at the NFC, not this whole league, the NFC in general.
Mm-hmm.
And before we see any moves made between, free agency, between obviously a draft, I don't see any significant moves that can be made that can make me believe that this team can get back, at the very least, back to Super Bowl next year. I can argue right now, look at the NFC alone, that Detroit could be a little worse next year. I mean, 50-2 is a hard pill to come back from, and then losing the first game in the playoffs. Granted, injuries and all that, I get all that.
Yeah.
Detroit, they also lost the coordinators. We see how that plays out in the past. You guys went through that 2 years ago.
Yeah.
The Niners on the downswing now. They Deebo Samuel's on the train blocker now, apparently. You got all the teams in the NFC. Green Bay is a good team, but they're still in limbo. The Rams getting better, but kind of limbo with Stafford. Who knows?
Yeah.
So
who knows if Stafford's on that team next year, right? I mean, that's
right. He may retire
right now. Yeah.
I would say last year he may retire. So I look at the NFC just alone, because the AFC obviously has all the heavyweights. The Ravens, Chiefs, and all that. Yeah. But just at least in the NFC alone, there's no reason to believe this team, even with some of the guys you may lose in free agency or whatever it may be, couldn't get back, at the very least, get back to the Super Bowl because of the environment NFC. Mm-hmm. And you guys are at your core guys, your core playmakers, to Hurts and the Browns, Smiths, Saquon. They are all at the correct age tiers, 30 and under.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to believe the Eagles could not run off another Super Bowl or two in the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
that's my assessment on the situation.
Offensively, for sure, too. I mean, aside from Becton, everyone else on the offensive line, Brown, Smith, Saquon, Hurts, they're all here for at least the next 2 years.
Right.
Defense is where it gets a little tricky because there was a lot of youth there. There are some people who are going to cash in on how well they performed in the Super Bowl and get a big contract, and they can't keep everyone. And that defense was, I mean, they stayed number 1 in the league consistently. Yes, there was the hiccup game against the Commanders where Hurts was out and they couldn't do anything offensively. But other than that, I mean, I felt like the defense kept this team in every game, and that was kind of that helped Hurts really shine because he knew he had that behind him. You make a mistake. I mean, he threw that pick in the Super Bowl only up 7-0. And even then, I watched the mic'd up of the Super Bowl and there was no panic on the sideline. It was just, okay, shrug it off. Let's go. And that's probably the mentality anywhere, but I think they truly believed that this time, we can afford to make a mistake. Whereas last time they could not. They had to play perfect. And they made 2 mistakes in Super Bowl 57, and they lost because of those 2 mistakes.
Yeah, they lost because of the one Jalen mistake there, and then of
course
the holding.
The holding, yeah.
And it's exactly why I said. So that same team is significantly better than they were 2 years ago.
Absolutely,
they're not losing this game. They're not losing this game. I'm sorry, not going to happen. So I don't think to me at the very least, getting back to Super Bowl should be virtually, in my opinion, a shoo-in. Should be a shoo-in. It really should.
I think that has to be the mentality for the team. I'm not going to argue that that's given the roster they have, that has to be the expectation.
And by the way, this is not a jinx. I really believe this. I really believe this for the record.
I mean, I think going into last year, we said the same thing. Like that's not. I don't think that's putting high expectations on the team.
Well, we said it too. Also, when we went 2-2, like we said this on the podcast. This one, Hold Up podcast, I said this too, and you don't agree with us. The issues they had were fixable issues. They were just internal. Yeah. Okay, let's get it right.
Yeah,
you have the talent to do it. Let's get it right. That's all.
Let's get healthy. So, I think the first 4 weeks you're trying to. I mean, they were buying into Fangio's system at that point. Yeah. And once it clicked, I mean, you saw that defense just turn around, and there was no turning back for them. And granted, they didn't play like a ton of tough teams, but they shut Baltimore's offense down. They shut the Rams offense down a couple of times. Yeah. Green Bay did well week 1, but in the playoffs, the Green Bay game I felt was their most dominant win, because even though offensively they weren't doing much, that defense did not let Jordan Love.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that argument. People say Washington because of the, but no, I think Green Bay because of.
Yeah, I was never in doubt against Green Bay. Washington, like there were a couple times where it was like we drive and we score here
early on, right?
Game. Yeah, and the defense then started forcing turnovers, and then it just took off. But
back to our debate earlier, when you talking about Jane Daniels' top reason why I was concerned top 5 is because that game alone told me like, okay, you're not good enough to win this game, but you're playing clean. You're not the reason you lost the game for the record,
right?
Because you played a clean game. Your guy is turned the ball over many times over.
He was fantastic, and I think with Washington, I think that's going to be the challenge next year, is because they have $92 million in cap space.
My boss, who's the Eagles fan, he has more than that. He has $120 million. They said apparently in cap room. So, and that's the thing about getting it right. And you guys know about this because you did this with Jalen Hurts. When you nail the quarterback early, in the rookie deal, it gives you a window to build around, and it opens up your window for Super Bowl. So, this
is the Eagles' 3-year window, I would say. Yeah, I think if they don't win one more in these next 3 years, then we start to see either the aging players drop off or new contracts need to be paid out, and we can't afford to keep.
Well, this is where now the Chiefs. We mentioned that the Chiefs are at now, because now they won 2 in a row. They won. They won 3 of 5.
3 of 5. Yeah.
Mahomes is amazing, and that team's amazing because they've gone no worse than an AFC title game for the last 7 years. That is insane to me to do that.
That's quite a run for that,
especially in that conference. It's not an easy conference on the record.
Right.
Having said that, though, I do think with the Chiefs, though, we're going to see a deterioration. I think because not because of them.
Yeah,
because them, number one, but number two, the environment is just tougher.
Yeah. I mean, there's parity. I mean, more teams in the AFC are catching up for sure.
Their own division. Denver's on the way up.
Chargers on the way up. Chargers. And I mean, the AFC North is always tough. I mean, the Bengals, the Ravens, even the Steelers. We've talked about Tomlin always finds a way to get that team to the playoffs. So you can't count them out.
Tough, man. I don't know if we can sustain this. I think I'm gonna make a bold prediction here. Now, people say, "Oh, well, this loss is good because they can get their revenge." No, stop. I think the problem is I think we'll see. That's what they do first in free agency and what they do to build around Mahomes going forward. I mean, hell, we only know if Kelsey's back next year. He may retire. What we know,
right?
I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do think next year there's a very good chance that they're still a playoff team. I would probably still pick them to win the division, probably. Or that might be a little tighter. But I do think they'll lose before the AFC title game right now. Now, that, again, I can change my mind when I see transactions and stuff happen. But for the time being, I think that the environment is gonna not allow them to capitalize on this loss. So
I would agree.
This is that.
Yeah.
Did you go to the parade?
Did not go to the parade. I went out.
Our panelists did. Our fellow panelists, Sean flew up.
Yeah, Sean flew
up. You slacker. So he's in Florida. You fly up there. You didn't go to the parade, bro. What's going on with you?
No. Yeah, I went last time. I had the flu after 52, and I still went to that one because it was the first one.
Right.
And you stand out in the cold, drink, and celebrate for 3 hours. The bus drives by for 90 seconds, and then you just kind of take your stuff and go home. So I was like, I don't really need to do that again. If it was nicer weather, then I probably would have made the trip there.
Plus it is pre-kid too, also. So your mind's a little different now. Now, like, I don't my kid.
Yeah, my daughter had a stomach bug too, so it was like,
yeah.
I don't want to leave her and my wife and go do this when I'll be miserable. So, but yeah, I mean, it looked like an awesome time. Last one was an awesome time. So, if it happens again, maybe I'll go every other. We'll see.
So I've never gone to parade. I've always said I would do it, and then when the Heat won in 2006, I thought about going. Then I was like, it's June in Miami, and it's fucking hot. I'm not doing that. Sorry. Yeah. And then I had a chance to do it again when the Heat repeated it with LeBron, and I was like, should I do it? I'm like, nah, I'll stay home because it's too damn hot. I'm not doing that shit. I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. So. I don't think I'll ever do a parade, honestly. I mean, unless it's something convenient. I'm in the area somewhere, and maybe I'll. But I don't know.
Baseball season parades. That was the best one. The Phillies in 08. I mean, the city itself. It had been 25 years, so the city was already like going nuts.
Right.
So the atmosphere, the energy in Philly, and that was good. But weather-wise, it was November.
2008, right?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. It was like maybe 55, 60 degrees.
And
so like
you're still a kid. You're like when you're 20 still.
Handle
so
that.
You can do
that. Yeah. I was in college at that point. So
I would say though, like if I had of the three teams, just and I'm not saying because of preference, it's because more so because of like weather wise, the Mets I would go for because if they win it, it'll be in the fall.
Fall in New York. Yeah.
So it's not brutally cold yet. It's cold enough, but not brutally cold. I'd probably go for that one. Yeah. That's why. But yeah. So yeah, man, great. I mean, the Eagles. I mean, like I said, there's no reason to believe like they can win another one next year. The Vegas numbers right now are correct. Eagles number one on that list, and I'm surprised it's not lower than plus 600. Honestly, in my opinion, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what free agency and the draft bring, but that has to be the mindset for them.
Right.
The way they're built, this is their 3-year window. Like the Saquon years, the Saquon contract, I think is when they. Like we say, 10 toes in. That's
right now, the other team in Philadelphia, meanwhile, I've been saying the Eagles have been a great distraction for the Sixers because, and I know you tweeted me. I meant to get back to you about that.
Yeah.
I had tweeted a couple days ago that if the Eagles were not winning the Super Bowl this week, Joel Embiid would probably get crucified by the Philly media. Mainly because Philly media isn't what they do.
That was my main point with that tweet.
Right.
It's not like the Philly media is ever easy on Joel Embiid.
Right, but they're not paying attention there because they have all the oxygen in the room right now. Right now, we're at All-Star break now. Recording this. The Sixers are 20-34 right now at the break. They're a game and a half back of the play-in, which is actually surprising considering everything how bad it's been.
Right.
And as a basketball fan, look at the Sixers. I'm worried about the future, not necessarily this year. Look, you can't make any moves now. Obviously, the deadline's passed already. You're hoping that you get these three guys healthy at the right time in April. Look, people forget last year they were playing team 2 last year and they made the playoffs.
Yep.
And before they lost to New York in the first round.
You gave the Knicks a run at least, but yeah.
Right. But I'm concerned for this Sixers team because I'm saying I'm looking for more big picture perspective, not just like right now.
Sure.
Going to next year, they might have 2 of the 3 worst contracts in basketball, based on where the team is at, based on where his players are at, health wise or not. And when I said I'm talking about Paul George and Joel Embiid, we know obviously when he is healthy, even this year, even in the last couple of weeks, when that dude he had a triple double 2 weeks ago,
right,
in the first game back.
Yeah.
So we know how good he is. We know how good this guy is when he's healthy, but it's when he's healthy, man. And it's so far and few now. He's not playing back-to-backs anymore. Paul George, another one. He's another one that can't stay healthy, and he had some really weird games.
Weird injuries this year.
Yeah. So there's a case we made that going to next year, unless things drastically change between now and October next year, that Philadelphia may own the 2 to 3 worst contracts in basketball. The third one being, of course, Bradley Beal. So
I would push back.
Is that too extreme? Go ahead.
No, I think it's fair. I would push back and say the Jimmy Butler contract that he just signed with Golden State is not going to age very well either.
So I actually agree with that. To be honest,
that would probably.
I don't know what that transaction meant. Thank you, Golden State. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, as a Heat fan, I'm sure you're glad that they're not the ones paying that out.
Right, exactly.
But, I mean, I don't think you're wrong necessarily. I think that was always kind of the risk with Embiid and Paul George. We knew this going in, and that was what a lot of people said to me in the offseason when the moves happened. And you and I talked about this. I think they were kind of handcuffed with what can we do.
Yeah.
What we've seen how good Joe and Maxey are together. Paul George, when healthy, is the perfect complement to those
sure
two.
Is.
And I think this year, the injury thing, because it wasn't just those two. Maxey's had some significant lost time as well.
Yeah, he did.
The bench has been decimated with injuries too.
Mm-hmm.
It's
the rookie McLean also had a phenomenal year. He's out for the year.
Yep. Yeah. So it's been some bad injury luck, but that's again, that's par for the course with what we've seen during the Embiid years, the Ben Simmons years, was the Fultz years. Like the Sixers are just kind of cursed when it comes to health. And when we talk about what can they do from here, I think they got to roll the dice next year. I think that's kind of where they're at. No one's trading for the Paul George contract. I don't think at this point you want to trade off the Embiid contract if you're Philly, just because of how well him and Maxey are as a duo. That had the opportunity, the potential to be Iverson Mutombo. Like those two, the way they complemented each other, I think that we could have seen a run like that for Philly. So I think you have to give it one more roll of the dice next year, and just kind of see where you're at. And then at that point, Paul George is almost an expiring. You can kind of retool.
Is there a player opt on after year 2 or year 3?
I think it's after year 3 is the player.
So you got 2 more years. You got 2 more years on top of this then.
Yeah.
And he may opt in that contract depending on where he's at his contract, but it is in his health.
He might. And again, I don't think we can necessarily say he's not living up to the contract. Joe's not, just because we haven't really seen the three of them play together, but for 12, 14 games this year out of 54. So it's like you said, the Eagles have been a nice distraction for the basketball fans. But we knew even NBA in general, though, I think it's just kind of seeing a drop off this year as opposed to years past. I don't know if you feel that, but even
no, I did for the first and until close to trade deadline, and then when on the mix of, I think the shakeups really sparked it, like Luka moving to LA and AD, AD of course getting hurt, but AD his first half of that game was phenomenal.
Yeah,
the moves that was made, Jimmy moving to Golden State, I think kind of sparked the interest too, also.
Yeah, the Bucks made a big move. Ingram,
which I like for the record.
Ingram going to Toronto, I think, is a good play for.
I think Toronto's
involved.
interesting. I think Toronto next year. Too many wings though there, but very interesting situation for the Raptors next year. I think.
The Knicks are an interesting situation too, because they traded the future for the team they have now, and they're still getting run off the court by Boston.
By Boston, right? I will say though, Cat. I told you this in years past. Like, never been a big Cat guy, but this year he's starting to turn me a little bit down. This year he's been phenomenal. I can make an argument right now that Cat, after they get past Jokic and SGA and maybe even Tatum, Cat MVP doesn't sound silly.
Right,
he's having a phenomenal year.
He is. He absolutely is.
Yeah. So no, back to Philly though. We always knew that was the risk though with Paul George too, with their injuries. And that's the thing. I agree with you. In terms of running it back one other time, because we know that when they're healthy, it works. However, I'm going to ask you this. Pretend you're Daryl Morey for a second. If a team calls and said they're interested in Joel Embiid, and right now is you're not going to get any better value than you are for that kid right now, and you still got 2 years of his contract, and actually 3 more because there's a player opt in the last part, which he may opt in depending on where he's at. Also,
right? You
have to at least entertain the idea of trading him, right? If teams are out there trying to, what would you do
with Embiid, right?
Right, Embiid, right?
Just 2 questions, yeah. So with a franchise player, I think as GM you need to see 1, what's the return, and 2. What is the reaction going to be from the fan base? At this point, for Daryl Morey, there's no risk of the fans being upset. I feel like a lot of, and this is Philly.
You got to big that into also.
My thoughts on the Philly fans that I am one of. They, at this point, I feel like would welcome a change of scene for Joel too. I think that there's the frustration is there. I've always been an apologist for Joel Embiid. I know he plays through a lot more than people give him credit for. But I also can understand where some people are with, when are we going to move on from this? And I feel like for that, like when Iverson was traded, Iverson was loved by the city full, like he could do no wrong in Philadelphia, still can't. So when he was moved, I think you saw a lot more backlash from the Philly fans.
Yeah.
This point, I feel like with Embiid, there would probably be more, okay, we get it. Finally, let's build around Maxey. Let's see what we do. And then if that doesn't work, obviously the same fans will be, well, why did we trade Embiid? The same ones that were calling for it for years will be the ones to throw Morey under the bus for doing it. But I think initially there's not that risk there that there would be, like trading, I don't know, let's say a Luka Doncic. Like,
yeah, we've seen it before.
Like that, I feel like is what Morey, and in past years, if he had traded Embiid, we might have seen that type of reaction. I think at this point, the fans are ready for a change. And that he wants to be in Philly. He said he wants to be in Philly, but ultimately he wants to win. And so wherever he goes, they're going to get a great player.
And the thing is too, also, as bad as things are for the Sixers right now, 20-34, they only gained half back of the play-in. They got to play in last year, and they made the playoffs. They cannot punt it this year. You can't waste this. You can't waste this year.
Mm-hmm.
You can't punt it this year,
right.
Even with all the injuries. You got to push through, because with those contracts and the window is year to year at this point in Embiid. You got to push through. If these guys are healthy by April and you're still game back of the play-in, you got to push through, get in the play-in, win you 2 games, get in the playoffs, and see what happens. And see what happens. Yeah. And still on the board. Maybe something works. Maybe someone gets hurt in the playoffs. Maybe Tatum gets hurt and things change for the Celtics. Things can happen. We've seen it happen in the past. Look at the Heat a couple years ago, 8 seed. So
yeah, I mean, look at
the finals.
Sixers won as the 7th seed or as the 8th seed because Derrick Rose blew his knee out in the playoffs.
There you go. So things can happen. Yeah. So they can't afford to punt it this year.
Right.
They cannot afford to punt this year. So
that's the situation they were in, and that's why I wasn't too surprised when they just kind of maintained status quo at the trade deadline. Like they didn't make any big moves. They didn't give up.
They got rid of players.
They dumped some salary to avoid.
Was that a salary dump? Was that
I think it was to avoid like the repeater tax because now they're under the threshold because they know next year they don't have cap space, and I think they want to see what they can do to extend Yabusele, so they had to find some room somewhere. Yeah,
he's been a bright spot. Yeah, and it's funny because like you guys lost 5 in a row, going into the break, but you only game half back in the play-in. So I still think you guys get in because I think. If I'm seeing Joel and even if I'm not playing back to backs, if I get enough Joel and PG to play enough games between now and April, you should be able to overtake Chicago. So I don't see it being a problem. All right. Other NBA thing here last week. Kevin Durant became an 8th player last week to reach 30,000 points. Where are you on Kevin Durant all time? Where are you on that? I don't think you ever spoke about that Kevin Durant on this podcast before, you and I.
No. I don't think he is. I know the big knock on Kevin Durant is the championships thing. He won with Golden State and hasn't been able to ever since with before or after. And he's had some pretty talented teams around him too. The Oklahoma City years, the Nets year where Brooklyn went all in, and now with the Suns. And I think the disappointment of those seasons as a team gets put a lot on Kevin Durant, and I think it gets put on Kevin Durant unfairly. I think he is, am I going to say top 10 all time? No, but I wouldn't argue top 20.
Oh yeah.
Easy. And I think
15. Actually, I got him 15. Actually, I'm 15. So
yeah, and that's probably fair. I don't know that he ever cracks into the top 10, and I think part of that is going to be because of the lack of postseason success where. He's the guy and the only guy, but I think that he's a lot better than people give credit for just because they put a lot of, the Suns are supposed to be in the conference finals every year and they're not. The Nets were supposed to do a lot more than they did when he was there.
We also have thought, but to his credit too, also, you're right about this. Isn't fair. I think also too for us as fans, depending on how you look at sports, and depending on how you look at legacies and stuff, it sometimes isn't fair because like he's not. We want our stars and our legends to be a certain way, to have a certain vision, and KD just wants to play. He's not. Let's say the leader. He's not the Kobe Jordan like rah rah. Get in my face. Asshole. Blah blah blah. I'm just here to play, bro. I'm here to play. And to his credit, no matter where he goes, he fits well. Golden State, we thought. I remember when he signed with Golden State in 2016. It was like, oh, will he fit there, bro? He's like nothing.
When he went to Golden State, I was like, okay, well, we don't need to watch the NBA for the next 4 years because
I thought there'd be a fit issue at first, but there wasn't a fit issue. He fit in because he's a gamer. He doesn't care about the ego thing, and he wants to play. So I think we got to bake that into also. So when we look at top 15, top 10, all that, as a pure talent, he's still 15 for me because it's top 15 for me because I think as a pure talent, you have to give him between the longevity now. He's now what? This is like year 18 for him now. Something. He's still a top 15 player in the league right now. Currently, so you got to give him that. He's still damn good talent, and his game is still aging pretty well. Any team he goes to right now, a contender he goes to, they're immediately a championship contender because of who he is and what he can do. So you got to give him that.
And not only that, I mean, his performance in the Olympics too has always been otherworldly.
Great point.
Similar to my critique with Carmelo Anthony was always, that how well does he fit? He's a scorer, but does he play team basketball? But they don't win the gold medal that year without Carmelo Anthony.
Correct.
Just having an unheard of performance, and this is from one of his biggest critics. That Olympics has always solidified to me of how good Carmelo Anthony actually was. And I think obviously last Olympics was the Steph Curry show, but Kevin Durant was instrumental in that gold medal run for them too.
Right. Speaking of Carmelo Anthony, nice tease there. We just found out a couple days ago the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame finalists have been released. A bunch of names here. Some of the notable names I'll throw out here. For example, Carmelo Anthony's mentioned. Mickey Arison, owner of the Miami Heat. Dwight Howard, Billy Donovan, the coach of is he still the coach of the Bulls? Yeah, right.
I believe so.
Yeah. You got Maya Moore, obviously WNBA, Sue Bird, Buck Williams, former Trailblazer, Marcus Johnson, Danny Crawford, and the Redeem team. Of course, that's the 2008 team with Kobe, LeBron, Melo. You mentioned Wade and all that. Any of these names do you speak on first ballot?
I probably would have to do a deeper dive into the stats. Off the top of my head, I mean, Heat's owner, they've got 4 rings now?
Three.
I mean, I think that at least is enough justification.
It should be 4, but the Dallas series. Come on, Mel. Come on, LeBron. Let's go, man.
Right.
So I'm sorry I have to give LeBron for that shit. Sorry.
I mean, I like Donovan there, but a lot of that was college.
That does count, though.
Yeah.
Does count. Yep.
Right. And I mean, you have to give him credit because as an NBA coach, I mean, he's done fine, but college is where he really shined. No one really screams right off the bat. Yes, absolutely first ballot. But I think if I took a look at, their career stats and what they've done for their prospective sports, prospective leagues, their college stuff too.
The Redeem team
for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And by the way, I'm assuming these are all first timers. I'm assuming that. Having said that, Melo, look, I know as complicated as he is, this is the individual award. He won a national championship in college.
Yeah.
He was a phenomenal player in the NBA, one of the greatest scorers of all time.
The Redeem team was Carmelo's time to shine too.
Yeah, so you may get in twice now in the same year.
Right. And you bring up a good point. The Syracuse Carmelo Anthony team was, I mean, I don't think anyone had them doing what they did in that tournament. Right. I think, they were obviously supposed to do well, but man, that was a fun Final Four that year.
Yeah. So I think Melo gets in. Redeem 2 gets in. I think Mickey Arison gets in because not only because of the 3 rings, but also since being the owner of the Miami Heat in 1995 when he bought Pat Riley, the Heat have been consistently good for 30-something years now. So he'll get in on that one. I think Dwight Howard should get in.
Yeah.
Dwight Howard, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year. the NBA.
I mean, people forget how good he was with the Magic just because of how his career kind of ended.
Brother, he was a top 3 player for a good 2-3 year stretch between 2009, 2011, 12.
He willed them further than I think a lot of people thought they would get. I mean, if you look at it, LeBron had to leave Cleveland and join a power team because of the fits Dwight Howard was giving those Cavs with the Magic. So yeah.
I'm with you on Billy Donovan. Obviously, because college helps him too. I think he won like 2 or 3 national titles with Florida as coach. I think Subert and Mymore gets in on the women's side.
They do. Yeah.
I don't think Buck Williams. I love Buck Williams. I don't think he get in though just yet. Although this probably is like he retired like years ago. So I mean, this is probably 8th or 9th time on the ballot. Who knows?
Right.
Danny Crawford actually is a referee. So I think he'll get in because I know the name very, very well. So
yeah, in a good way too.
Yeah, exactly. So those are the guys that stand out to me. Obviously, these other names that I'm not as familiar with though, but these are names I think will get in this year. I don't know the protocol, how many, because for example, the NFL, for example, they did only 4 guys got in this year, which was really weird.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works, how their voting does in comparison to football, in comparison to baseball. I don't know, but those are names I believe will likely get into the to the hall. All right, one last thing, a little off topic here. Saturday Night Live is celebrating their 50th anniversary. I actually today went back 10 years ago on my Facebook because one of my personal favorite like debates ever on social media was debating the Mount Rushmore of Saturday Night Live cast members 10 years ago. Now, we didn't know each other back then, but I remember this being a massive, big deal at the time we were doing on Facebook. Very controversial for some people.
Sure, I'll bet.
Were you at any point a big SNL guy?
I was back in like late 90s, early 2000s when I was, when I was a late teenager and then getting into college. That's when I really appreciated Saturday Night Live more. I don't watch it as much now. Here or there, I'll check it out. I still appreciate, what they do. But I think that over the past few years too, like there's been so much turnover with the cast.
Right.
Like back in the 80s, 90s, like people were on for long runs. Right. And then it felt like, I don't know, there was a lot more changeover and things just kind of went haywire from there.
Right.
But yes, I would still consider myself a fan of the show.
Do you have a Mount Rushmore? Or do you have
I do. I put that.
Okay.
I put it together. And when I put mine together, I kind of went in like the eras that I was familiar with.
That's fine.
So, I think that, looking back of like the early run and some of the people that were there, like your Dan Aykroyd, Chevy Chase, Bill Murray's like obviously legends, but I don't know that they necessarily make my SNL Mount Rushmore just because a lot of what I'm a fan of those people is outside of what they did in SNL.
Right.
For sure.
So that was your 4? That was your
that was not my 4. No.
Oh, okay.
So my
you
4,
you spill yours. Go ahead.
My 4, I have Eddie Murphy on mine.
I'm sorry. Anyone that doesn't have Eddie on the list, the story should away.
Yeah.
To me, he's like probably the only 100% lock. Castmate, Hall of Famer.
And I think because of like the way he spanned his career from there too. So Eddie Murphy, Mike Myers, Chris Farley are the two of like when I was watching the most. Those two had the skits that I think I still talk about the most. And we saw with Myers, it's a little more just because of Wayne's World then becoming a thing outside of SNL.
Yeah.
So those two, and then Tina Fey is my number 4 for.
I love her
for writing, for the Weekend Update stuff that she did, and for her actual like appearances outside in the sketches. But yeah, that would be my Mount Rushmore.
So mine. Okay, so 2 of the you have 2 of my 4 for record. Eddie, of course, number 1 with a bullet. The guy. I think some people forget. Kids probably forget how big Eddie was in the 80s. Like he was arguably, after Michael Jackson, the biggest celebrity in the country.
I mean, he had a hell of a decade in the 80s.
He had, bro. Eddie Murphy has probably the greatest 10-year run of movies I have ever seen in my entire life. So you go back to 82, and by the way, 82 he's still in SNL for the record.
Yeah.
Okay. 48 Hours. Parlay to Beverly Hills Cop, which by the way I told you is my top 5 all time. The 1 and 2 movies, personal movies all time.
Yeah.
Parlaying that to Golden Child, parlaying that to Coming to America, and then going to Harlem Nights, and then even the 90s movies that weren't as looked at high regard but a lot of that's because of the fact he had so much greater movies in the 80s that but if those movies didn't exist, they would have looked at like Boomerang and Swedish Gentleman.
Right. I love Boomerang. The soundtrack for Boomerang,
hell yeah,
phenomenal. It's a top 10 soundtrack.
Absolutely. You know what? One day you and I we'll do a top 10 soundtrack podcast.
Yeah,
great idea. I'll file that for content.
And this EJ is not even mentioning the Eddie Murphy Raw that came out in that time.
My mom went to this. You know that my mom went to this.
Yeah,
my mom was there.
Right. Like this is like just the movies you're mentioning, like Trading Places, the Beverly Hills Cop franchise, Coming to America, all fantastic. And then he has his stand-up.
Delirious and Raw. Delirious is my favorite, by the way. Delirious and Raw are my 2 favorite stand-ups in the history of comedy.
While being a cast member of Saturday Night Live. Like that. Correct. That's a hell of a decade.
Right. He had the greatest 10-year run in the history of Hollywood, I would say, in terms of comedy and terms of that. So to me, Eddie's one for me, and that's not in order. Eddie, Adam Sandler, Mike Myers. I agree with you on Mike Myers, and Dan Aykroyd.
Okay.
Yeah. When I did Minds 10 years ago, and mine hasn't changed much, I can probably do this again probably and really, really go down to more numbers. It's more so about the success they had also after it too. Because remember, Saturday Night Live was a launching pad for these guys.
Yeah.
And then Adam Sandler, his 90s run was not quite Eddie.
No, but it was up there.
Next step, right? So he had a phenomenal run. Again, Mike Myers, with Wayne's World, I agree with you on that one.
Yeah,
but
Farley to me was the one that I put over Adam Sandler just because I think if not for his death, he's probably up there with Sandler in terms of having a great run because he was already. I mean, Tommy Boy was coming out, Black Sheep, Beverly Hills Ninja, and he was supposed to be the voice of Shrek before he passed, and so that went to Mike Myers. And it's crazy the Shrek franchise with 2 of our people. And I will say, if the run continues, I'm not mad at people putting Kenan Thompson on theirs.
Really?
Because he's been a staple for SNL for quite some time now.
He's been at least 10 years, right? Not longer, right?
Yeah, if not longer, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, obviously he knew sketch comedy, if you consider, all that. Yeah. And Kenan and Kel, the sketch comedy. So it made sense for him to make that run. But he's been on from 2003 to present, according to Wikipedia.
You said Tina Fey, right?
I did say Tina Fey.
Yeah, I'm looking through some of these comments from 10 years ago. Some of the feedback on what people had on the list. Steve Martin was actually not on the show. I realize that now. Steve Martin was actually just a host.
He was a host,
Yeah, was never a cast member. What about Tracy Morgan?
Tracy Morgan, I would have Tracy Morgan behind Tim Meadows.
Okay,
I think
Tim Meadows was great.
Tim Meadows was fantastic. Tim Meadows was hard for me to leave off of my list, to be honest, just because of the Ladies' Man sketch. Still stands out as one of my favorites. The movie, not so much, but the sketch at least was good. We should do another podcast in a couple weeks. Do a top 10 SNL power rankings. Yeah. When you want to do that? Yeah, I would do that.
Let's do that.
Yeah, because I mean, there's still a lot of people like Will Ferrell was tough for me to leave off my list.
That's another one too. Also, and another one, Norm Macdonald.
Norm Macdonald is
my God,
still my favorite Weekend Update host.
Yes, mine too.
I think he kind of set the standard for that. But there's a ton of people that like you could put on the list, and I wouldn't necessarily argue with you to have them on there.
Right.
Norm Macdonald being one of them.
Yeah.
Julia Louis-Dreyfus,
Another one.
fantastic on there.
But I'm just watching Veep right now still. So
Kate McKinnon had a hell of a 10 years on there.
Yeah. Tim Meadows is probably the most underrated one, I think.
Seth Meyers and Jimmy Fallon, I think, like both of them did great on there and turned that into where they are now with like talk show hosts. So like, yeah, there's a ton you can do with that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. We'll do a top 10 SNL Power Rankings episode because I think, and I guess we'll do top 10. I guess it really has to be personal preference more than anything else because I didn't watch much after the mid 90s. Like I watched the 80s, obviously. To be honest with you, I credit the WWE for getting me into Saturday Night Live because when I was a kid, I used to think that Saturday Night Event came on. Remember, they came on 5 times a year.
Yeah,
and it came on their time slot, 11:30 to 1 a.m. And I used to think that Saturday Night Main Event would come on the very next week after. I'm like, and no, Saturday Night Live was on again. Like, fuck, when does it come on again? You know, right. But naturally, as I got older, I started watching Night Live because of that. Now I got used to that time slot. So, but my thing is that I am so used to the 80s cast and then the early 90s cast. Like I know some of the 2000s, obviously the Tina Fey's and all that, but my real investment in that show was in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah,
early 90s.
Absolutely.
So we'll do a top 10 in the next couple weeks and see where we lay on that one. So Matt, great job as always, man. Great podcast on a Sunday after morning. I appreciate it.
No football today, so we had some time.
Wait, no football. I mean, All-Star game. Are you into the All-Star game weekend stuff?
I watch the dunk contest. Usually, that's about it. I mean, McClung.
That kid is sick, isn't he?
That kid he's so good at that. I feel like every year, like your big name, like players are like, oh, I'm gonna do this next year and dethrone him, and then come like January, they're like, nah, I'm not doing that. So I think he has one more in him. We'll see.
Three in a row. My God,
3 in a row.
And Tyler Hero won the 3-point contest last night. That was good for him. So good job by him.
Yeah.
Go ahead and plug. Anything you want to plug?
Yeah, I mean, you can listen to me on Tuesdays and Thursdays on the 3CT podcast, talking wrestling and everything else.
Not AEW. Not AEW.
Not AEW, apparently.
Have you been watching anything wrestling lately?
A little bit here and there.
It's hard to watch every week, bro.
The Eagles run kind of took a lot of my focus, and I've been traveling a lot these past few weeks, but I try to when I can. I watched the debut on Netflix just because
I did too. It's a big deal.
Like you had to. It was a good show. It was like, oh yeah, I should watch more of this, and then didn't. But yeah, so you can hear me there during the football season. Huddle Up podcast Tuesdays on occasion, and then
I've been missing shows too. Don't feel bad.
Yeah. And then Monday on the Maximize Monday podcast. But it's always fun to do this. I like that we can kind of mix up sports and non-sports talk.
Well, we're gonna do that thing in a couple weeks, so get this ready to go. Okay,
let's do that. You and I should do a Disney episode sometimes too. Just
okay. What do you want to do? Like
about the world? Yeah, let's talk rides. Let's rank some rides.
I'm actually going back there in 2 weeks.
Nice.
But listen, check this out. I'm going on a guy trip though.
Oh.
It's two of my coworkers.
Very nice.
Fathers of mine, also fathers. We're going on a guys trip in 2 weeks. We haven't decided where we're going yet, though.
Okay.
I'm trying to get them to go to Animal Kingdom because I haven't gone in quite a while for that one. There's rides closing down very soon. I know the dinosaur is closing down.
Dinosaur's
I think
closing down soon.
Yeah, so I want to check that out. But I'm going.
You gotta do the Pandora stuff too.
Yeah, I do. My wife, of course, she's a freak. She's going. This coming Thursday. Then she's with her girlfriends. And then she's going 4 days after that again with the kids.
Nice.
So and her best friend. So she that's oh, and by the way, I bought my tickets for the concert in New York on Friday.
Nice. All right.
Since we're down in Cornwall.
There you go.
Yeah. So I got all that lined up.
Now you're in.
I got a lot of shows. I got Deftones coming up next month here. I got the MJ Musical coming up in April here in Fort Lauderdale. I have Metallica in June coming up. And awesome. We're down in August, so we got a good year of concerts coming up, brother. Yeah. Should be a fun year. I'm living this year, man.
Yeah.
I'm tired of being old, man. Time to be old.
25 is the year of EJ.
Yeah, exactly. Good job, brother.
All right, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Bye.